gatekeeper, old head, flip-flopper, call it what you want, broad at it again.
There's 3 keys to disc golf: driving, approaching, and putting. You need all 3 to do this disc sport.
Some of you may know I spent 30 days throwing MVP, Streamline, and Axiom discs. Today, I'm answering your questions. You've talked about the bittersweetness of your channel growing thanks to this series. What if you implement something similar for another brand, 30 days throwing only Clash, Prodigy, etc.? That's a good question, and one that I've gotten kind of a lot, I feel like, over this 30-day challenge. Plain and simple, the only way that a challenge like this, dedicating 30 days, 22 episodes of content, is worth it, is if people are going to watch. And right now in disc golf, I'm 99% sure MVP Discs is the only brand that is going to get the response that this series did. I think if, 30 days ago or whatever, I said, hey guys, for 30 days, I'm throwing Innova, you'd be like, get f***ed, broad. You already do that. Hey guys, 30 days throwing Discraft. They'd be like, the same with everyone else, man. No one cares. 30 days throwing Discmania. People would be like, oh, that's just Trilogy. 30 days throwing Trilogy. Nobody cares. 30 days throwing Clash. Maybe like a few videos highlighting Clash would be good. I've had a few comments on Legacy, which I think, to be honest, could be cool. Because Legacy has this super full lineup, full of really good molds, with good plastic, created by Steve Rico, who is an OG of disc golf, who basically built Legacy because he wanted his own magnet, his own destroyer, his own rock, all these classic Innova and Discraft molds, and he said, I'm going to make them myself. So they have very similar molds. They come in a variety of plastics. So there's companies that you could do this for, but unless that company itself was paying me to do it, I don't really know if it would be worth it. That being said, I do want to continue to do series because, for one, content direction wise, it's much better. It gives you an idea. It gives you, it gave me 30 days basically of like, hey, this is what you're doing. You don't have to come up every day with an idea. You can kind of plan out some ideas and kind of run with that. And I do think maybe doing, hey, for the next 60 days, I'm going to give you guys, maybe 10 to 15 episodes covering a brand. But in between that, you're going to get all your regular programming, here from the Frisbee Club. I think something like that in the future is something that I am interested in doing. On what brand, I'm not necessarily sure. That's kind of my answer, I guess, to that question. Is it sounds great, I think, from an outsider perspective, and I'm sure there is like a group of people who would watch it and really enjoy it. But the reality is, this MVP series was 90% business decision, 10% everything else, I guess. The idea was originally Clint, Blitz Disc Golf's idea for me. He said, hey, Brad, you should do a series. You should do it on MVP. I have hundreds of MVP discs. Pick what you want. And, we started from there. And he said that, and at first I was like, I'll be honest, man, I like throwing my Frisbees, and I like just tossing and talking shit, which is kind of still what I did, but it was with MVP. And so it was tricky, but I did realize, over the 2 years almost that I've been doing this now, plain and simple, MVP videos perform the best by quite a bit, and I knew that. So I knew doing this series, it would probably do well enough to like dedicate, 30 days to it. Did I think it was going to do as well as it did? No, I did not. If you looked at my top videos right now, I would be willing to bet, if you looked at maybe 40 of my top videos, I bet almost all 22 episodes of this series would be in that top 40, which is pretty insane. I gained close to, I want to say, like 1,500 subscribers, and overall it was an amazing success, business wise. I feel like I created some solid content as well. The bittersweetness, I guess, of like my channel growing thanks to this series is it's interesting because I've had a few comments throughout this month that are kind of like, you know, like, oh, like, there's one in particular. I'll get right to it. The Planet Namek, and he's commented not like a ton, but decent amount on my videos. It's always kind of like hate, you know, like hates to love me. I think like clearly a fan, clearly watches the videos, but you know, hates in the comment section. But he says, bad take after bad take, honestly, and just like the MVP discs in your bag, I'm out of here at the end of this endeavor. MVP is the most popular brand right now. Why stop? He makes a good point in terms of like MVP is the most popular brand right now. Why stop? The bad take after bad take thing, and he's out of here just like the MVP discs. Good, leave. I get fucked, to be completely honest. But I commented back, I said, LOL, I don't enjoy throwing MVP. Why would I continue? Which I'll elaborate more on. He says, I mean, as a YouTuber, I'd think you'd want subscribers and viewers, but I don't know. I guess throwing discs that have been out for what seems like 50 years isn't the way to go. He's not wrong, but I'll elaborate more. I said, but enjoying my time while disc golfing and creating content is the way to go. Because creating content, it causes burnout sometimes. It takes this thing that you absolutely love, this game that's been my life since I was in 5th grade, and making it a job. We all know, you know, if you do what you love, you never work a day in your life. But the reality is, sometimes you just don't want to go out and film for off-tube cinemas. That's just how it is. And then somebody comments back, shout out to this guy. He says, this is exactly why we like Broadville. If you get it, you get it. If you don't, there are plenty of people out there catering to popular opinion, fishing for views with dynamite. And then the guy says back, what do you mean? He was just fishing for subs to get to 10K in the MVP community. It's just funny. He talked shit about the pixel, but then started putting with pixels. In this video, he talked about finding pushy, overstable mids and goes on to throw the pyro with more push than the ultra he's referencing, and then talks shit about it. Gatekeeper, old head, flip-flopper, call it what you want, broad at it again. So if he knows I'm an old head, if he knows I'm a gatekeeper, broad at it again, clearly fan of the channel, 100%. But I'll go back to the beginning where I said, I don't enjoy throwing MVP, why would I continue? And short answer to him, obviously, there's more to it. I love disc golf. Something that I've done for my whole life, and I've always loved it. I've always pretty much been obsessed with it, you know? And I grew up in the day where MVP really wasn't a thing other than the Ion. I grew up throwing Innova, you know, old Innova, old Discraft. And the nostalgic feeling that I get when I throw these classic Frisbees, that is why I play disc golf. It's not for the newest, best thing. It's for when I throw the Eagle for the 1000th time, when I throw the Firebird, when I throw the Wraith Destroyer, the Buzz SS, the Zone. Sometimes me and the Zone have a love-hate relationship, but that's why I play disc golf, because it brings me memories of when I was a child with my friends throwing Frisbees at South Park. And MVP just does nothing for me personally, like, you know, internally in terms of like nostalgia and enjoyment for this sport. MVP, it just doesn't do it for me. The number one aspect of that is it's newer, it's more popular, so I tend to stick with what I know. But it's the aesthetic. MVP aesthetics, I just personally don't like. I don't like how nothing matches. You know, you got black rims, you got swirly rims, you got all this and that. I just don't like how it looks, and that's just my opinion. I understand how some people might love how it looks. And I understand that it is cool, like in the grand scheme, but it's not cool for me. And I'm the type of player who, I like to throw my discs, you know. If someone, you know, if I was somewhere, and I feel like this is a good explanation of why MVP just doesn't bring me as much joy as my discs, is say I went on like vacation, you know, and I didn't bring my discs or something, and oh, but there's a course there, like a really good course, and I had to play it, but I didn't have my discs, and I say you could like rent some discs, or like some random person you met on the course had some discs for you to borrow. In my mind, playing that beautiful course without my discs is like a waste of time because I don't have that connection with the discs that I'm throwing. And now this explanation might be so much like deeper than maybe a lot of people have thought about disc golf with, but that's how it is for me. So the whole month of throwing MVP, the whole goal was I want to find one disc that I really connect with and that I could see myself bagging. And we kind of did that with the proxy, even though I had a preconceived idea that I really like the proxy. I think it's one of the best, if not maybe the best throwing putter ever. I don't know. That kind of brings me to this next question, which I thought was a really good, like, valid point. It says, really love the series. It kind of felt like you were trying them, but you were biased. I didn't feel like a wholehearted attempt or it didn't feel like a wholehearted attempt to get to know the new discs, and definitely not that interested in adopting them. Still though, super fun ride, kudos, great series. You seem to have inspired other YouTubers to try this. Was I biased? 100%. I will tell 100 disc golfers out of 100 disc golfers every single time they ask me, is Innova better than MVP? Yes. That will be my answer till the day that I die. Was it a wholehearted attempt to get to know the discs? I think it was, yes, because I threw them for 30 days. You have to get to know them. Now, did I enjoy that the whole time? For the majority, yes. The first maybe 15 to 20 days, I feel like I really actually did have fun. It was kind of like, all right, you find a couple discs you like, you're vibing with, you're out there chucking them, you're really getting to know them somewhat, and I'm like, this is fun. It was enjoyable. But then as things got later into the series, I'd go out to throw, and I'd get kind of to that point where I was just like, man, I don't really want to go play. Simply put, because I don't get to throw my actual discs. And, he said, definitely not interested in adopting them, which I would say, I don't know if he necessarily meant that as like adopting them forever, because yeah, that was never the plan. And I feel like I made that pretty clear from day one of the goal was to find one disc, and never would I bag like a decent amount of MVP because of all the reasons I've already explained to you. That's just not how I am. But I really liked this comment. I thought it was one of the most like in-depth kind of analysis. I don't know. I'm a frolf tuber. I dropped out of college. But, that being said, I do feel like I put a lot of effort into this series, and I did want to make it the best possible thing I could do. I put out 22 episodes in 30 days. I feel like that kind of speaks for itself. Were all the episodes great? Maybe there was a few that just weren't the best, but overall I feel like I tried to make the best frolf tube cinema that I could during those 30 days. So did I adopt them, wholeheartedly? For the 30 days, I think I did, but I knew that as soon as it was over, I was going right back to the old stuff, And that's just me, I guess. Did you learn anything about your game or type of discs you like throwing by throwing MVP? Yes. And it didn't really hit me until later on, and then the first round back with my discs. Actually, I did field work with my discs first. I realized that the whole month of throwing MVP, everything I threw this month was pretty much new. My bag, if you're an OG, I throw hyzer flips. I throw beat up discs, hyzer flip them, and I build my entire lineup off of, hey, can I release this on 15% hyzer and then get it to do what I want to do? That's how I build my bag. All the MVP stuff being new, instead of either trying to find used bin finds that are already beat up, or maybe just trying more probably flippier discs, instead of that I changed my game a little bit to just, hey, throw flatter, which some people might be like, hey, that's probably better than relying on hyzer flips. And if I could start all over, I'd say maybe it's probably better to, like, if you were going to pick one that you hyzer flipped everything or you threw flat, throwing flat's probably smart. But I've been doing it for way too long to start now, so we're sticking with the hyzer flips. But I kind of realized that the MVP stuff, there's a few molds that I could throw on those hyzer flips, but I feel like most of them I either knew, all right, I'm putting this on hyzer and it's just gonna hyzer, or I'm throwing it flat and that's how I'm gonna get like a full flight out of it. And I guess what I learned about my game is I really like to throw old beat up discs on hyzer flips. So as soon as I got my discs back, I started realizing like, okay, that's like the disconnect I had with these discs all month, is they just didn't do, what I'm used to discs doing. I'm a used bin guy. I'm a used disc guy. I'm an old disc guy. I like the stuff that's seasoned. I like it to flip up, and it was weird, but I didn't really realize that towards just to the end of that challenge. Next question, basically plastics. What's your thoughts on plastics? I talked a little bit about my dislike of fission, but I also talked about a few instances where I like, or I think I like fission. I got my hands on one of the fission watts, and it was kind of this stiff, like slick run of fission, which I don't really know if that's how fission always feels, because I know some fission's kind of like soft and grippy. I also talked about how much I didn't like MVP putter plastics. They're too grippy. If you like the grippiest plastic you could ever get, putt with some MVP. But for me, it just was not the vibe. And I actually was like, man, if they made some fission pixels, it might be money, because it'd kind of be like that KCAVR vibe, like kind of slick, like a little bit, stiffer. And I was like, that might be nice. But fission and drivers, I'm not a big fan of. I'd say like for mids, drivers, all that stuff, the plastic I actually enjoyed the most this month was plasma, which is odd because I hate swirly plastic. I think it just looks like shit. If you were like, hey, do you just want a red disc or do you want like a swirly whatever? I'm taking just like a red disc. And but the plasma, I don't know if it maybe had a little more grip to it. Maybe it was just the molds I ended up liking were plasma. But I seemed like I liked the plasma. The plasma hex I was throwing all month was money. It felt really good. The plasma octane towards the end felt really good. The plasma photon, plasma crave that I tried, the plasma fireball motion, all of them. I liked the plasma the best. I felt like it had the best grip. That's kind of my thoughts on the plastic. Is MVP plastic bad? No, you could never say that MVP plastic is bad. It's probably some of the most high quality stuff out there. We all know that. But is it for me? Not necessarily. Don't love the feel of it. I like, just that like that standard plastic. I don't know. And I guess in my head when I think standard plastic, it's Innova Star plastic. That's what I like. People frequently say MVP Axiom Streamline have the best putters and mids in the game. Gavin Rathbun's in the bag, and countless creators say that, but there's consistent dislike for lots of the drivers. Do you feel like the overmold makes the drivers even more unpredictable? And then I had another question basically saying, do you think MVP putters and mids go further than other brands? So my thoughts on the distance drivers, I'm sure if you kept up with the series, you already know this. The gyro technology, I don't necessarily know if I'm a believer in. I never clicked with the distance driver this month, plain and simple. So many people wanted me to try 14 and a half speeds, even though I kind of said from like the first week that like they feel horrible. They're literally just massive. And so the octane, the trace, and the trail kind of seem to be the only ones where like hand feel wise, I enjoyed them. The gyro effect, I don't know, man. I'll be honest. The mids and the putters, here's my theory. If you ask me, Brad, what's the furthest flying mid range in the game? I might tell you it's the Hex, to be honest. Now, do I think the Hex has more glide than another disc kind of in that same category? Not necessarily, but I think the Hex is faster. MVP mids, we all know, are kind of like a little lower profile, a little bit thinner. And I kind of feel like the Hex just bombs because it's almost like a 5.5 speed. It just seems so fast. And that's kind of the case, I feel like, with a lot of MVP discs. And then you can kind of say the same thing for putters, is a lot of MVP putters are lower profile, like the NV, Proxy, Anode, whatever, lower profile, the watt. So I feel like they're just a little faster. And that might be a reason why a lot of people feel like they see better distance out of them. That being said, putters, I would disagree that MVP putters go further. I think maybe one of the furthest flying putters would be like a beat up S-Line P2. Something more like a deep dish putter that used to be stable, but is now beat up to hold straight and get a little turn and stuff, but is deeper because it's deeper, gets more air under it, and it's going to glide further. That's my thoughts on that. The Hextall might be the furthest flying mid range. I'm sure Gavin Rathbun throws them 1.5 miles because he throws far. So I had one main question and then a few others that kind of go along with it. Is the trail really that good, or is it just the latest overhyped disc? And then a few other people kind of said like, oh, I thought the range would stay in the bag. Why didn't you putt with the Streamline Pilot? Get yourself an Eagle Envy. The Prism Proton plastic is amazing. You'll thank me later. So the reason I kind of group all these into their own category, other than the Pilot, I guess, is MVP's had a lot of like hype releases lately. And I'm a disc golf content creator. I have been for about like 2 years now. And I know a lot of people are probably new to this channel from the MVP series, so maybe they haven't seen my catalog of videos. But I've made like over 300 videos. And if MVP dropped a new disc that was hype in the last 2 years, there's pretty good odds that I've made a video on it in the past. The Eagle Envy, I think I was actually the first review on YouTube because I got access to it way before they came out. So I've thrown the Eagle Envy. I just don't love the Envy. The Envy to me is like, it wants to be overstable, but it's really not. But it's also like not really straight. So in my mind, I'd rather have like a stabilizer and a proxy. I know the stabilizer's going left, and I know the proxy's doing whatever I tell it to do. Whereas the Envy's kind of in that weird area. Now, is the Envy bad? By no means is it bad. It just doesn't quite fit my play style. The Trail, which was kind of the original question, is the Trail like a hyped up disc, or is it just, you know, is it overrated or whatever? Short answer, no. Great disc, not overrated. Probably one of MVP's best discs. Long answer, for the last few years, I feel like basically what MVP has been doing is they're finally releasing discs that have already been on the market from other manufacturers, but because it's coming from MVP, it's seeing an influx of new players discovering this category of disc, which is making people think it's like the best disc ever made. So the Trail comes out. It's the amateur, you know, disc of the year, amateur distance driver of the year. Is the Trail amazing? Yes, it flies great. You cannot argue with that. They hit the nail on the head with that one. And Brad and Chad in the Gyro Palooza Live even said they think some of their recent molds are some of the best molds they've ever put out. That being said, guys, the Sidewinder's been out for a long time. The Roadrunner's been out for a long time. The Rogue has been out for a long time. There's so many of these like 9, 10 speed, 11 speed distance drivers that are like straighter for like amateurs that have been out forever. But plain and simple, they're kind of old news. So people that are newer to the sport haven't thrown them. And then MVP comes along with their version. And then they're like, oh, this is the best disc ever. Oh my gosh, it's changing the game for amateurs. When, you know, Innova's had that in their lineup for 20 years. You know, and it's all just about personal preference. What brand do you want to throw? What company do you want to support, throw their discs, whatever. So I get it. But I think it's funny because I feel like MVP, basically, they come out with some discs that just already exist, but it's a great category of disc. And so people kind of go crazy for it. Somebody mentioned the range. The range, great disc. I think MVP was definitely missing that in their lineup, but they're like, oh, I'm surprised you didn't end up bagging the range. There's so many better options than the range, you know, and that's just kind of my idea from a person who isn't newer to the sport and understands that like all these discs are out there. Like you could even argue like the Beast and the Valkyrie, which are two discs that used to be super popular and then are super like outdated. I need to stop doing that. Beast and Valkyrie, super outdated. Pretty much a Trail. They're the same damn thing. Super straight 10 speed. They go really far for most people because most people's arm speeds fit those a lot better than, a destroyer. And people just didn't really think about those discs because they're old news, which I get. Which ones were your favorite forehand? Developing mine, and I only throw MVP, so I'd love to hear your thoughts on varying speeds, forehand distance drivers you like, favorite drivers, so on. MVP is an amazing forehand disc company because they're all flat. They might have some of the best forehand mid ranges in terms of like straight mid ranges. Like if you were like, hey, you need to throw the straightest forehand mid range ever, I'm probably picking a Hex. The Matrix is great. Obviously, people love the Pyro. That's more overstable though. But then you got things like the Crave being flat. It's one of the most workable fairway drivers being flat. And when you buy a Crave, it's almost always going to be flat. So you don't have to worry about that variance. And most players like flat discs for forehands. So a few of my favorites were the Wrath, the Photon, the Crave, even though I didn't get to throw that a ton this month. The Crave is a great forehand disc. And the Hex might be this best straight forehand disc, like straight mid-range forehand disc on the market because of how low profile it is. I would love to see Big Germ flick a Hex because I feel like he would do some nutty things with that. And so that's my opinion is there's so many good MVP discs or forehand because they're flat, and I think 99% of like forehand dominant players would rather have a flat disc than a domey disc. In terms of molds, I think you just got to find the best stability for you. So this isn't really like a question I got, but it was more of like a comment that I got a few times here and there. It was like on episode 1, it's like, all right, Broad, see you in 30 days. And now at the end, it's like, all right, like, yo, I can come back now and watch again. And I think it's funny because it's just a true representation of disc golf right now where you got the new heads and you got the old heads. And I definitely fall more into the old head category. You got the people who, plain and simple, just aren't worried about the new release, the new hot thing. They just want to see frisbees fly, and preferably like probably older frisbees. And I'm definitely in that category. And so I think it's funny that I've obviously built this channel mainly off of like old head disc golf and telling stories and just the classic community that I feel like disc golf was and still is in some areas, but it's growing a lot and changing in a lot of disc golf communities. But I just thought it was funny to see like people be like, I'm out for 30 days because they just have no interest. But so these comments I got, I totally relate. Thanks for sticking around. I hope if you left for 30 days, I hope you're back. And if you're new here, I hope you stick around because I think there's a lot of just good frolf tube on this channel. We just try and really enjoy this sport overall. Does it really matter what anyone's throwing? Not really. They all just fly. And look at Simon. He's one of my favorite players. One of the best players ever to throw a frisbee. I think he has one of the highest ceilings in the game, and he's doing it with MVP. So I think this is a thing. Some people took some things that I said this month as like hate towards MVP, which I think is just so funny because I don't hate MVP by any means. I'm so glad they're growing the sport and getting it to be taken more serious, and because I want disc golf to grow, and I just think it's funny that people just like would take some things I would say and be like, oh, you're like hating on it, and I'm like, no, this is just my opinion because this is my YouTube channel and I can literally say anything that I want. On that same topic, the same guy who was like, oh, you just like you're fishing for subs to get 10K, the MVP community, blah, blah, blah. And he's like, it's funny, he talked shit about the Pixel, but then started putting with Pixels. Bro, I praised the Pixel. When I came out with the MVP Halloween video, the whole video, or the MVP Pixel Halloween specifically video, the whole video was about how much I love the Pixel and think it's the best mold MVP's ever done. And I talked about how I putted the Pixels in real life and love the flight, but could never get behind the plastic. So when I started this series, I thought I should try some new stuff. You know, that's why I tried the Atom, the Ion, the Envy, and then towards the end, I kind of realized like, I don't like the plastic, but if I'm gonna not like the plastic, I might as well like the mold. And we went back to the Pixel because the Pixel's great. And he says like, oh, he talks shit about the Pyro. No, the whole video I basically praised the Ultra and the Pyro, saying they're both two of the best overstable mids on the market. But I just said as soon as this 30 days is over, I'm throwing the Ultra again. No fucking shit, dumbass. Like what? So I just think like people take the opinions towards their beloved MVP, because this guy clearly is a MVP dick rider. They take it like, oh, I don't get to have an opinion against MVP because MVP's the best. It's like, dude, get fucked. I can literally say whatever I want. You can too, which is the great thing. It's like you can comment whatever you want, and then I can comment whatever the hell I want back to you. So it's kind of like a 50-50 world we're living in here. But you're trying to like have this opinion on like what I throw. Clearly you don't like me. So why are you like saying, why are you wanting me to make my content to appeal to you when you clearly don't like me? That's my biggest question. The great part is this is only probably like 1% of my comments. Most of my comments are some of the nicest comments I've ever had in my life, like 99% of them. And I cannot thank you guys enough because we get some supporters over here. And the comment section, I read every comment, guys. Every one of them. So if you ever said anything nice, just know a lot of times I screenshot it if it's super nice so that I can remember it and I can remember you because I appreciate it a ton. But I am the type of creator who gets a little on edge and I like to clap back. Kind of answered everything. A lot of the comments, you know, were kind of similar and I kind of like bunched them all in to one. But overall, guys, this MVP challenge was great. Thank you all. If you watch this whole series, guys, there's 22 episodes, not counting this one. If you didn't watch them all, go check them all out. If you're watching this for the first time and you're somehow at the end and you didn't even see this series at all, go watch the whole series. It's in a playlist, so go check it out. Also, if you're an MVP person who's new and you haven't gone back and watched any old content, go watch some old content because I think you might enjoy it. Or you might hate it and then you'll leave. But that's fine because we don't all need to like each other. That's the cool part. You guys can go watch someone else, you know. The odds of me doing another series with another brand it's like 50-50. Will it be as in-depth as this one in terms of like 22 episodes in 30 days? Hell no. It'll be much more spread out and it won't be the only thing I'm doing. It'll be like, you know, 1 or 2 episodes a week with other stuff sprinkled in between. But I would love to really like highlight some other brands and maybe some more low-key brands. DGA, Legacy, and Millennium are kind of the ones that are like, and Prodigy, honestly, because Prodigy, I love their putters and their A series. I think they're some of the best. But I've thrown like a very limited, like the F series, FX series, H series, anything that's not a D1 or a D2 or an A series, P series, and an M4, I basically have never even thought of or touched. So it might be interesting to take the deep dive. That being said, I have to get my hands on it. Tons of plastic. So if you're a brand watching this and you want a series done, Prodigy, Millennium, Legacy, hit me up. We could maybe make something happen. But, you know, thanks for watching, guys. We will see you in the next one. Tomorrow's video, we're back to regularly scheduled programming, and it's just a little viber. Go check it out. We'll see ya.
Creator of Frisbee Club,
The man,
motherfuckers.
the man, the myth.
And right here, I have a frisbee bag. It holds all my frisbees, the ones I like.